Alright, I'm at Kentucky Dragway. Since I got the Trans Am fixed, I'm going to do the Sportsman bracket class in the Trans Am. Even though it's threatening to rain today, and it did rain earlier, there's a pretty good crowd. But the main thing I want to see today is to make sure the cutout issue at 6,800 RPM is fixed with them lifters. Alright, I'm in the staging lanes. I'm not sure if that's focusing. Yeah, it's probably just the dirty windshield. I'm gonna make my first time run. The DA has already checked it. It's 2,800 today, so it's pretty high.
So I only had one time trial since I got there late, and I used it to see if the car was going to cut out at the higher RPMs, like it's been doing, and it did, as you'll hear over and over in this video. And if anybody has any insight on this that you think you may know what it is, please feel free to comment. Alright, so as soon as that pass was over, they called us up to the staging lanes for first round. So I was late getting there, so I kind of jumped in if you haven't had a time run yet, pull to these lanes. So I made my time run, and then they flipped us right back around and called us to the staging lanes for first round. And with the car cutting out like that, it only run at 1226, so I had no clue what to dial it in at, so I went ahead and dialed it in at 1190.
Well, I got one time run, but I ruined it because I over-revved the car to see if the lifters fixed the issue where it cuts out at 6,800. It didn't fix the issue, so it cuts out around 6,800 for some reason. We can't seem to figure it out, but that guy treated me by 0.05. I let off the gas because I thought I was going to pass him because I was coming around him so quick. So I let off the gas thinking I'd pass him, but apparently I didn't pass him. But I ran 0.078 within my time, and he ran 0.096 within his time. So he beat me by 0.032. So if I stayed in it, I either would have broke out or I would have beat him. I think I would have beat him. I should have stayed in it. I was coming around him so fast, I thought I'd let off the gas and still pass him, but I'm gonna go buy back, try again. Well, it rained on us. When they're trying to dry the track, hopefully the rain stays away. It looks like it cleared out a little bit. It only sprinkled, but it sprinkled a constant hour. So we'll see if they can get it dry. But I'm a little bummed out because the lifters didn't fix our issue. And we need to get that fixed, especially on the nitrous, because when it traps on nitrous at the end of the quarter mile, it's in that area where it's hitting that spot where the RPMs just cut completely out. It's like 66 to 6800 that it does it. It just falls flat on its face. And I think if we could fix that, we can definitely get another tenth out of it on nitrous at least. But we're going to have to get that fixed. I think it's either the springs or the ignition box, because we changed the coil and we changed the lifters. So I mean, that only thing I can think of that would do that would be the ignition box or the springs. They broke out a jet engine and tried it with a jet engine. All the fast guys are checking it out. Maybe we'll get to race again. Well, they spent 3 hours drying the track, and they pulled us up here. A few cars was able to make some rounds, and it's raining again. It isn't a hard rain, but I mean, it's just a sprinkle, but it won't stop. But I don't think we're going to get any more racing done tonight. Main thing I want to do is check those, see if the lifters fixed our rev issue, and it didn't. So I'm assuming it's valve float. I think it's the springs, the Promax springs, even though we got the 600 lift roller springs from Promax with the heads. They just ain't cutting it. If y'all know a good spring for the, well, we'll probably just go with the one Comp Cams recommend, see if they've got any in stock, hopefully. And have to buy a tool to change the springs on the heads and see if that's what it is. If it ain't that, then the only thing left is the ignition box. But hopefully we can get it fixed.
So just a little info on the build to see if anybody had any input on why it would be doing this in the upper RPMs, cutting out like that. But it's 383 small block Chevy. It's a 4-bolt main, factory 4-bolt main. It's completely forged bottom end. The pistons, the rings have been gapped 2832 for, we plan to spray heavy shots of nitrous later. 11-to-1 compression, I think I already mentioned that. It had a 2800 stall in it. We put a 4000 Circle D stall in it. It's got a 350, 355 gear. I forget exactly. The carburetor is a Pro System Pro Series 4150 780 CFM, custom built for this motor. It had this cutout issue even when we were on the dyno, and the FR and the fuel pressure was all reading good, so it's not fuel related. We went with a Professional Products Hurricane intake. I believe that a dual plane probably would have been better for motor, but we plan to spray heavy shots of nitrous through a plate, so I think a single plane would have been best for that. And here are just some more specs on the intake. We're using an MSD Pro Billet distributor, and we have the 6AL2 programmable ignition box, which is kind of cool because you can hook it up to a computer and pull timing for nitrous and launch retard and some other cool. Initially, we thought it was the coil. We was using the Blaster 2 coil, and then we switched to this HVC 2 coil, hoping that would fix the issue, and it didn't. We had some cheap eBay lifters, link bar retrofit eBay lifters, and there was at least one of them making some bad noises, no matter how we adjusted it. So I thought maybe it was the lifters. So we put these Comp Cam short travel roller lifters in it, and they sound way better. And I was hoping that would fix the issue, but it didn't. And here are just some more specs on the lifters. And we're using the Scorpion 1.5 non-self-aligning roller rockers. It does have guide plates that came with the Promax heads. And this is the cam that we're running, Comp Cams 12-443-8. It's the retrofit roller. And here are the specs on the cam. 242, 248, 50,000 duration, 540, 562 lift. That's why we only went with the 1.5 rockers, because the springs, which I'll show you here in a bit, only are good for 600 lift. And we're running straight out of the box ProMax 200cc heads. They've got 202-16 valves in them, 200cc runner, 64 cc combustion chambers that put us right around 11.1 compression. A lot of people say when you get these heads, take them straight to the machine shop and have them checked out, and we didn't do that. And we did order them with the springs they recommend for 600 lift roller cams. So it does have whatever ProMax uses for their. I tried to find a part number and look some information up on the springs, but I couldn't get very much information. But they're the ones that come from ProMax on the heads for a hydraulic roller going up to 600 lift. And this is what little information I could find on these springs. 145 closed, 145 pounds closed, and 325 open pressure, which is, I looked up what Comp Cams recommends for this cam, and it's actually, the numbers are lower than this, which is odd. But the thing about it is Comp Cams only has this cam listed as 6,100 RPM max. And in this combination, it's wanting to pull a lot higher than that, because on the dyno, when it hit where it did this, the horsepower was still climbing straight up. I mean, it was wanting to go. I'd say it probably went to 7,200 had this issue not been here, and we could have got a lot more horsepower out of it if we could have twisted it a little bit further. Now, my cam is the duration and the center lobe separation angle and stuff like that. It's almost identical to this cam, except for I have more lift on my LT1. But the closed pressure on my springs are 155 closed and 400 open. So I don't know. I'm really leaning towards it being an issue with the springs or the ignition box. I'm not 100% sure, but I would really appreciate some opinions. So if you could put them in the comments there, what you think it might be. Kind of getting tired of throwing parts at it. I mean, it needed a better coil anyway, and it needed a better lifters anyway, but I really hope the next thing that I do fixes this, and I'd really like to have some good input on what way y'all think I should try to approach this and try to fix it. Now, another thing that I had tried to fix this too is I thought maybe it was kind of some type of electrical interference or a bad ground, but I went through the car and I like regrounded everything. I mean, the motor uses solid motor mounts, so it's grounded there, and I still ran a ground from the block to the frame, and then I ran grounds from the frame to the motor, to the frame to the firewall, to the frame to the fender, and the ignition box per MSD. The hot and the grounder ran straight to the battery. The battery is ran to the frame, and then everything's ran off the frame to the motor to the firewall, the frame to the firewall, the motor to the fender, the frame to the fender. I ran a bunch of grounds, and that didn't fix it. And I also used one of those electronic interference magnetic pickup wires. It was like $50 that I ran from the ignition box to the distributor to see if that'd fix it, and that didn't fix it either. So we tried the grounds, we tried the EFI cable for the magnetic pickup, we tried a different coil, we tried different lifters. Not sure where to go from here.